watching Twin Tiers Evening News with Jeff Androlonis and Alexa Olson. Now, from the Twin Tiers' biggest broadcast news operation, WVTT proudly presents Twin Tiers Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Alexa Olson.
And I'm Jeff Androlonis. Good evening. The big story tonight on Twin Tiers Evening News. Chuck Hagel arrived at the Pentagon this morning for his first day on the job as the nation's new defense secretary. Hagel was sworn in this morning and may face an immediate challenge in his new position. Military spending will be impacted if forced budget cuts go into effect Friday. The Senate voted 58-41 to confirm Hagel Tuesday night after a bruising confirmation battle.
Also happening in Washington today, a Senate judiciary hearing on banning assault weapons. Among those in attendance, Vice President Joe Biden, who talked about being voices for those who can no longer speak for themselves.
There are going to be a lot of voices in this debate, but I'm absolutely determined to make sure that the loudest voice will be the voices of those who we have lost. We have to speak for them and their families. Enough is enough.
And it's been months since Sandy Hook, but the pain is still fresh for the residents of Newtown, especially the parents of those who lost children that day. Among those testifying today was Neil Helson, who lost his 6-year-old son Jesse, who was killed among 19 of his classmates.
Jesse was brutally murdered. Sandy Hook School. On December 14th, 20 minutes after I dropped him off.
Closer to home, the first annual Economic Summit meeting for Western New York was held this week. Lawmakers, local business owners, and state representatives met at an invitation-only meeting to discuss ways to increase Western New York's economy. Olean Mayor Linda Witt was among those in attendance. She tells WVTT News what the particulars were that were discussed at the meeting.
What it is starting the process of being able to take projects to the regional committee that basically looks through projects, and then there's a pot of money, which I think it's about $150 million, that they give to projects throughout Western, that's for Western New York. For instance, if people remember last year's money, $1 billion went to Buffalo for different projects that they had submitted. And what the governor's goal is to try to help municipalities in Western New York attract people, attract tourism, attract more folks to want to be here to work as engineers, physicians. It comes down almost to a quality of life issue.
As a whole, the Olean mayor says she believes the meeting went well. You can see our entire interview with Mayor Witt on our website. That's WVTTnews.com.
Members at the SPCA Niagara will have to shell out as much as $1,000 for their membership dues. A shock to many because until now, members only paid about $25. And people are speaking out. One member says she isn't happy because this means if she doesn't pay that $1,000, she won't be able to vote for people to serve on the board of directors. The board president says it was strictly, quote, a business decision for financial reasons, and the latest changes are 100% legal.
Alexa, legislation that would require child abuse recognition and reporting training for all employees of child care facilities and professional licensees who are mandated reporters was the topic of discussion at a public hearing in Harrisburg by the House Children and Youth Committee. Now, this legislation would impact Pennsylvania. The representative who introduced the bill says child care workers need to know what offenses must be reported and how to recognize the warning signs of child abuse. This all follows up the Jerry Sandusky child sex abuse scandal that rocked Pennsylvania State University.
As another deadline for enacting New York fracking regulations comes and goes with no action, environmental groups and other organizations are renewing their call for public participation in a health impact review. Today is the deadline for the Department of Environmental Conservation to issue a final version of its proposed regulations for gas drilling using hydraulic fracturing, known as fracking. But Commissioner Joe Martin says that the regulations won't be completed until the state health commissioner concludes his review of health impacts. If new regulations are proposed, they'll be subject to at least a 45-day comment period. A coalition of groups is holding a news conference today calling on Governor Andrew Cuomo to conduct a state-specific health impact assessment with public participation. And earlier this afternoon at that press conference, there were letters that were released from over 100 health professionals and environmental, national, and statewide leaders to call on Governor Cuomo to take a longer look into these studies.
Well, snowmobiling is popular across western New York, but snowmobiling requires trails to be open, and that can be a problem when snowmobile clubs rely heavily on volunteers and private landowners to host the trails. The problem comes when people don't follow the trails or the rules because the landowner may close off their property because of the damage the snowmobiles can cause. Snowmobile club websites have a section that let you know what trails are open and groomed. In Cattaraugus County, one trail that goes through a golf course could get shut down. If it does, the only path to Franklinville on a snowmobile will also close.
A scary situation in Buffalo earlier this morning. The body of an elderly woman was found about 20 yards away from a set of railroad tracks near Weck Street, according to Buffalo police. Homicide detectives are investigating the incident but won't know the cause of death until autopsy results come back. Police have not released the name of that victim and were unable to confirm at this point if the body belongs to 84-year-old Calvin Graham, who's been missing since Sunday.
Scientists are working on the worsening problem of algae in Lake Erie. Experts from the U.S. and Canada met Monday and Tuesday to discuss findings from research into blue-green algae blooms on the lake. The scientists are explaining sources of phosphorus, the leading culprit behind the algae blooms, after reports came out that animals were dying after being exposed to the toxic algae. They're also studying how climate change may contribute to the fast-growing plant. The commission plans to release a draft report for public comment in May and a final version by early September.
And on a lighter note, Budweiser, the self-proclaimed king of beers, is under attack for watering down their beer. 3 different lawsuits filed in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and San Francisco are accusing Budweiser with adding extra water to 11 different beers. That means the beers are being sold at a lower alcohol content than advertised. All 3 lawsuits are seeking damages over $5 million. The beers included in the lawsuit are Budweiser, Bud Ice, Bud Light Platinum, Michelob, King Cobra, Busch Ice, Black Crown, Bud Light Lime, Hurricane High, Gravity Lager, Natural Ice, and Michelob Ultra. But the company that owns Budweiser calling these claims groundless. Jeff.
Alexa, just 11 of my favorite beer names right there. Thanks for the update on that. Coming up here on Twin Tiers Evening News, we'll take our first look at weather as snow hit the Twin Tiers over the last 24 hours. What's still to come? We'll tell you next here on Twin Tiers Evening News on News Channel 25 WVTT.